the reason for this advice has never been about what's good for you. It's about not disrupting the peace or inconveniencing the person who's treating you badly and the people giving you that advice. Have you found yourself asking the question, why are people taking advantage of me? Why do I struggle with boundaries? How can I stop people pushing my boundaries? If you have, then I'm certain that you're caught up in some unhealthy and maybe toxic relationship patterns. In this episode, I'm going to answer the questions, why do people push boundaries? What happens when you don't have boundaries? And give you some tips on how to stop people pushing your boundaries. The first reason is that you haven't seen healthy boundaries expressed. Most of what we learn in our childhood sets the foundation of our thoughts, beliefs and perceptions well into our friendships and relationships when we grow up. A lot of us don't break out of this. Some people will eventually start to realize that some of the patterns of behavior we learned growing up aren't compatible with the society now, but also that they aren't compatible with our own personal values. But if our basic understanding of boundaries and what they mean are based on a model of an unhealthy relationship, then how will our own relationships ever be healthy? You might have learned that life is hard and relationships are tough, and instead of taking that to mean that you need to work harder at that, you've been shaped to believe that that means if they are hard, just put up with it and get on with things. There is truth in the basic principle of relationships being hard, but number one, relationships don't have to be hard all the time, and actually shouldn't be. Number two, your response in this example of being quiet and dealing with it doesn't have to be the same as the people you learn that from. That might have been their value, but their values don't have to be the same as yours. The second reason follows on from the previous one, where because you've never seen healthy boundaries being practiced, you now don't know how to put in boundaries in a healthy way. You don't know what your own personal limits even are. You don't know how to be assertive when people are violating your limits, and you don't know the words or the framework to use when starting to implement boundaries. This may have fallen into your beliefs to the point where you now have an all or nothing view of relationships. You're either in my life with no boundaries from me and me constantly feeling like a pushover, or you're not in my life at all. Rather than appreciating that relationships are nuanced, and actually there are many levels in between being a pushover and not having someone in your life, you feeling uncomfortable with how to put boundaries in place has led you to develop black and white thinking about people either being in your life or not. The third reason is that you haven't yet internalized the belief that healthy boundaries are necessary. Every relationship has rules. On an extreme level, that rule might be, you can never hit me, you can never cheat on me. So all relationships, including friendships and with your family, need to have some kind of framework about what's acceptable and what's not. These are often unspoken rules in many cases, and it's great when your values are lined up with that person's values as well, because then overall these unspoken rules will roughly be the same and not take as much work. But often when it comes to other aspects of your life, you might not have the same value as the other person, and that's exactly when communicating those boundaries is so important. I have a future video coming soon on why boundaries are essential, because I really believe that once everyone understands and internalizes this, then you'll have the foundation ready to then start putting those boundaries without the guilt that often comes along with it. Reason number 4 for why you struggle to set boundaries is that the only examples of boundaries you've seen are rude, and being rude isn't a fundamental part of who you are or how you see yourself. Now with this, there are two things that are really important to understand. The first is that, like I said earlier about the all or nothing brain, there are so many levels between passively sitting back and allowing people to walk all over you, and being rude, harsh, aggressive, and saying no to everyone. And that's definitely something I'll be talking about in coming videos, about how to actually set these boundaries without being rude. But there will be people who, despite how kind and gentle you are when you set your boundaries, they will have a problem with it. And those are usually the people who are benefiting from your silence and misery in the first place. Reason number 5 is that you're surrounded by toxic, self-serving people. Although I believe that the majority of the reasons for why we struggle with implementing boundaries is because of our beliefs and understanding about it, there is an element of the behavior coming directly from other people. If you're largely around people who are manipulative, toxic, have a victim mentality, are emotionally abusive, then their behavior and expectations of you and your boundaries will begin to shape your understanding of yourself as well. So the way you see yourself, what your values are, what you feel your identity is, and ultimately what role and purpose you think you occupy in their lives. Logic tells us that using the negative person's belief about your boundaries isn't the best value to base your life around. But the sad thing is that it can often get absorbed so deep into your core beliefs, and then when all of the negative people around you are reinforcing and encouraging those thoughts, then it ends up becoming a part of who you are. Now, I use the word becoming deliberately, because if you've learned to become this way, you can learn to be different. And that's what all of this work about boundaries is all about. Laying the fundamentals for yourself and then building from there. But sometimes the fundamentals start with knocking down the current structure that you built for yourself and just starting again. can. The next reason I see all the time, particularly with older generations, is that you've been taught that to be a good person, you must be passive and you must be a pushover. Now, the biggest problem with this way of thinking is that it inherently means that if you are not passive, if you are not a pushover, then you aren't a good person. If this is a belief everyone around you holds, then any deviation from that, any action that steps even slightly away from that will automatically put you into being in the fold of a bad person. You often see culture and carefully selected religious references thrown over you as a way of making you feel guilty about having an opinion, or speaking up for yourself, or for what you feel is wrong. But truthfully, any advancement or progress in culture, countries, or even religion came from very brave and very strong people speaking up for when things were wrong, and we don't see any of them as bad people. I truly believe that the idea that to be a good person you must sit back and tolerate abuse, and the more you tolerate the better you are, is a way of controlling you, your thoughts, and your behavior. The next reason is that you might be made to feel like you're doing the right thing by not putting in your own boundaries. Tell me if this sounds familiar. This person is treating me badly. I'm not even talking about acting out revenge. I'm just saying that this is affecting me so much that I need to step back a bit. But then being constantly told, but that's not who you are. It's not a fundamental part of you to do that, and that's why you shouldn't. If you resonate with this, then understand this. What you're actually being told here is that you must stay and continue to be a pushover, remain in this unhealthy dynamic for the sake of everyone else's convenience. The unfortunate truth is that the reason for this advice has never been about what's good for you. It's about not disrupting the peace or inconveniencing the person who's treating you badly and the people giving you that advice. So what's happening here is everyone is looking out for themselves, and then you're also looking out for them, but now that's an uneven distribution because no one is looking out for you. Reason number 8 is that you're putting importance on other people's happiness and contentment over your own. You're tolerating them overstepping your boundaries, but what you don't realize you're doing is enabling their negative behavior. Think about it, when this person gets into conflict with other people, as for sure they will, they don't realize that the problem is with them. Oh, because you're a nice person and you're happy with me, that must mean that I'm fine and that other people are the problem. People are constantly looking for reasons not to change. And if you are allowing that person's behavior to continue, they will continue it with you and with other people. But what you need to realize is that enabling their behavior makes you bitter and unhappy in the short term and makes them bitter and unhappy in the long term, so no one's actually winning. Reason number 9 is that you believe that you allowing things to stay as they are and to be passive is the single most important thing needed for the person to do well. Now, this is not true. Many circumstances need to come together for anyone to thrive, and I would say 70% of that will be that person's own drive, motivation, discipline, and commitment. And let me know if you think it's more or less than that. And even then, the remaining 30% won't be entirely about you. But you've developed this belief that 90% of this person doing well is because of me and my input, and without it, that person will fail in life. When you start to realize that this is just not the case, you will begin to slowly relinquish this unnecessary pressure that you have on your shoulders and actually hand back responsibility to the person or people where it belongs. Reason number 10 is that you have an unhealthy picture of what love is. You see love as the more of yourself you're able to sacrifice, the more that this is a reflection of how much you love that other person. This is a whole topic within itself, but ultimately, if this is you, I want you to really ask yourself, if the only way that this relationship is going to survive is if you continuously sacrifice yourself, is this a healthy relationship? And let's already assume that you know it's not a healthy one. How long before this starts to impact your mental health, your physical health, your relationship with other people? And if you have children, imagine the negative impact this is going to have on them. This is about reframing what your picture of a healthy relationship with your other half, friends, family, etc. looks like. I've done a video on habits that build a strong relationship, and in that one I also talk about 4 things that you should never compromise on in a relationship. I'll link that in the description box for you. So those were 10 reasons why you struggle to set boundaries in your relationships. I have another video coming soon on 9 more reasons, as well as how to practically start setting boundaries without being rude and feeling guilty. Let me know in the comment section which one of these ones resonated with you, but that's it from me for now, and I will see you in my next one.